It is Mock Draft numero dos here on Seahawks Today, and what's going to be different this time is that we have trades involved here in this mock draft, and I have used the Draft Network Draft Simulator, so they've made the picks for the other 31 teams, and so it's my job to step in for John Schneider and Pete Carroll today to make the rest of the draft picks for the Seattle Seahawks. So before we reveal these picks and also these trades and all of that, here's your chance to get this thing started. Who should the Seahawks draft at 5 and 20? If you were John Schneider and you could make these picks, who do you like for Seattle to select those 5 and 20 overall picks? Let us know in the comments section below who you'd like to see the Seahawks pick. So let's look at the first 4 selections off the board in the simulator. The Bears at number 1 go Will Anderson from Alabama. Number 2, the Texans, with a bit of surprise, they go Myles Murphy out of Clemson at number 2. Tyree Wilson goes all the way to 3 to the Arizona Cardinals out of Texas Tech. And then the Colts, they pass on the quarterback position with going with an offensive tackle out of Ohio State, Paris Johnson Jr. Every quarterback still on the board at this point. Not a quarterback selected, and the Seahawks pick at 5, so you can have any quarterback you want at this point in time based on the way the simulator worked out, whether it's Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, or Will Levis. But here's something to think about, too. Jalen Carter's still there. Jalen Carter, who's arguably the best player of this draft, that fits the number 1 position of need for the Seahawks, is somehow still around at 5? You know what I'm about to do. Of course I'm taking Jalen Carter here. I understand. Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, very good players. But this is a situation. I have said this from the beginning. If Will Anderson and Jalen Carter are there, I don't care what your quarterback situation is. You take those guys first, and then you figure out the rest after that. Jalen Carter is too good to pass up. If you're picking Carter at 5, I mean, you are feeling pretty good. You're popping champagne bottles and everything and having a great time. So, Seahawks take Jalen Carter, number 1 overall player and number 1 defensive tackle on Mel Kiper Jr.'s big board. A unanimous first-team All-American this past season, and not to mention a 2-time national champion with the Georgia Bulldogs, a home run pick, and I might get a big pay raise if I'm making this pick for the Seattle Seahawks at 5. Here's what Mel Kiper has to say about Jalen Carter. He finished the season playing the best ball of his career. He had 12 quarterback pressures in his last 3 games for the back-to-back national champs, showing that he can wreck games from the interior. Carter was fantastic after he returned in late October from missing 2 games because of a knee injury. Check out this show of force in the SEC title game against LSU. Georgia had 5 defenders picked in round 1 last April, and Carter arguably was the most disruptive than all of them in 2021. He's explosive at the snap and finishes well around the ball, even though he has just 6 career sacks. The numbers from Carter this past season include 32 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles, but those don't tell the whole story, as he took on a lot of double teams at times, and he opened up things for other guys that do well and stack up their numbers. You get Jalen Carter here, I mean, you're feeling pretty good. So, tell me this in the comment section. If he's there at 5, how could you pass on him? Should the Seahawks draft Jalen Carter if they get that opportunity to do so? Let me know in the comment section. Type Y for yes, type N for no if you think the Seahawks should draft Jalen Carter. You might get an ad break. If so, take advantage of it. Get your votes in. Y for yes, N for no if the Seahawks should draft Jalen Carter or not. So our 20th selection, we have a trade offer from the Chicago Bears. And it involves the Seahawks moving back from 20 to 53. But we pick up a first-round pick next year. Now you have my attention, because I think the Bears are going to be really bad next year. And so this should be a pretty high pick, considerably speaking. So with that, I'm going to take the trade offer. I'm not going to pick at 20 with that other first-round selection. So then we're going to skip forward to the 37th pick after I've taken the Bears' first-round pick and I've moved back to 53. We'll get to the 53rd pick here in just a second. Let's go to 37. That's where I have the Seahawks landing Alabama linebacker Henry To'o from the University of Alabama at 37 overall, filling another need at the linebacker position for your Seattle Seahawks. We are beefing up this defense, baby. The number 8 inside linebacker on Mel Kiper's big board, and with the injury concerns about Jordan Brooks, not knowing when he's going to come back, and then also having in free agency Cody Barton, I think you find a starting linebacker right here with this selection in the second round. A first-team All-SEC selection, started his career with Tennessee, and then he transferred to Alabama in 2021, and he flourished with the Crimson Tide the last couple of seasons. The statistics for Henry the past season include 94 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, and 2.5 sacks. To me, this is a guy that's a first-round talent, and if you get him at this spot in the second round, I think you're feeling pretty good as far as that goes. We got a couple more second-round picks to get to, but first, I made that trade. I traded out of 20. I got an offer I couldn't refuse. Sorry. If you hate it, well, that's on you. I mean, how could you not take that trade offer? Do you agree with taking that trade offer? Would you trade the number 20 pick if you get an offer like that? Let me know. Type T for trade, type P for pass. I am all open to discussion about trading draft picks. And this was one I could not pass up. Let me know in the comment section. T for trade, P for pass. What do you think about 20 overall? Now we skip ahead to 52, and we're going to go edge rusher. We're going to continue to build up on that defense, and that's where we find Army edge rusher Andre Carter II. And Andre Carter II, this is a guy that we've seen floated around as a top 20 pick potentially. He's still here at 52. We're feeling great. And I know the first question you're going to ask, well, he's from Army. Is he even eligible to play in the NFL? Is he going to have to, go join the military and be on base somewhere right away? He's got that all worked out. He is good to play football right now and live out his NFL dream and then figure out his military service later. He's deferring that. He is going all in the National Football League, so you don't have to worry about that. He is there. You look back at his junior season. Although this past year his numbers were down, he had 3.5 sacks. But remember, he was a bigger name, took on more double teams and stuff like that. His junior year was spectacular. 15.5 sacks, first-team all-independent selection, according to Phil Still. Even this past year, when he had the down year, which included 41 tackles, still had 7.5 tackles for loss this past year. And then you talk about size. Size matters, folks. 6'7", 260. This is a big dude, okay? And with being in the Army, he's going to be a disciplined football player too. So I really like this idea of taking Andre Carter II here with this pick. So then we have another pick for your Seattle Seahawks of who they go with at 53 overall. And this time we are going at wide receiver, our first offensive pick. That's where we find Zay Flowers from Boston College, who many people expect to be a first-round pick, but he slides to us in the second round. And I know what you're thinking, that Zay Flowers, maybe the Seahawks don't necessarily need a wide receiver that early, but this is something that I can't pass up on. And Tyler Lockett is 31 years old, and you have a need at the number 3 receiver spot. Flowers would jump in right away. Number 4 receiver on Kiper's big board, number 19 player over the all, and we got him at 53. That's great. 2-time All-ACC selection, and he set the school record for single season receiving touchdowns with 12 this past year. I like all of that about Zay Flowers. Nothing negative to say about Zay Flowers there. Mel Kiper even chimed in on Zay Flowers. Had this to say, Flowers, who had 200 catches and 31 touchdowns in his college career, is one of my favorite prospects in this entire class. He's so elusive, so quick in and out of his breaks. He plays out of the slot or lined up outside. Remember, Seahawks need help at slot. He can take a jet sweep to the house. That sounds nice. He just gets open and makes plays. He forced 25 missed tackles this season, the third most in the country for wideouts. Flowers' size won't wow teams, but just put on the tape and they'll see why I think he's a first-round talent. You look at what he did last year. We mentioned the 12 touchdowns he had, 78 catches, over 1,000 yards. To me, that's a win-win. You're getting a top 20 caliber receiver, top 20 player in this draft in the second round. That's a home run, and you've already taken care of defense with some big picks earlier before that. Got a great deal that we're offering all of our Seahawk fans here on Seahawks Day. Look, it is still a little cold outside. You need a hoodie, whether you're just inside and don't want to turn on the heater, or if you're going outside and hanging out with the boys, whatever it may be. We got you covered. And get this, the hoodies are on sale up to 50% off. 50% off just for a limited time. All supplies last. Get yours today, whether you want to wear blue or gray or white. We have the Seahawks gear for everybody in all different colors, all different shapes and sizes. We got you covered. Get yours now. Chatsports.com/Seahawks hoodie for more. That's chatsports.com/Seahawks hoodie. 83rd pick, we go back to defense, and that's where we find Brandon Joseph. The Seahawks have question marks when it comes to the safety position, with Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams getting older, and also with Jamal Adams having question marks about his health, and they might move him to linebacker anyway. So we find Brandon Joseph here, who not too long ago was a first-team All-American back in 2020, and he's been successful at two different schools, Northwestern and Notre Dame. You go back to 2020, that was the COVID season, and the nerds at Pro Football Focus rated Joseph that year as the number one strong safety in the entire country. That's how good he played back then. And so you bring Brandon Joseph in, and I think you're pretty excited because now you have some potential flexibility to figure out what you're going to do with Jamal Adams. And if Jamal Adams isn't quite healthy, then I think that you have a solution of some sorts here with Brandon Joseph, and it's a guy that you found yourself that you didn't have to use a first-round pick on for a position that's of need but not of highest priority. We move to pick 123. We get our help on the offensive line. Seahawks are desperate when it comes to the interior of the offensive line with the center positions and the guard spots. You already have your bookend tackles for the foreseeable future with Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. And this is where we find, say it real slow with me here, folks, Olu Oluwatimi from the University of Michigan. Consensus All-American in 2022. Won some big-time awards, including the Outland Trophy and the Remington Award. And kind of like what we talked about with Joseph earlier, is that he's been successful in two places. Spent 3 seasons at Virginia. Now he's there at Michigan and had a very solid season with the Michigan Wolverines. Of course, they made it to the college football playoff and won the Big Ten championship. And you look at what he was a part of with that Michigan team. They ran the football so well. They were a physical football team. You have 2 tackles that specialize when it comes to pass blocking. You get OO here. We're just going to call him OO for short. And he's a very good run blocker. Then you're kind of taking care of 2 different things. You got your pass blocking specialist. Now you take care of the run game from the inside. I like this selection for Seattle. Still a few more picks to get to. But what is the biggest need for the Seahawks in this year's draft? There's a lot of different directions we can point to. We can talk about the interior of the offensive line. We can look at the front 7. What is the biggest need? What do they need to cover in this draft? Let us know in the comments section what you think the Seahawks need to take care of in this draft. Biggest need. Let's go back to the defensive line now with 153. That's where we're taking Zach Pickens, Zach Double C Pickens with this selection. And I'll be honest, this is more of a project with Zach Pickens with this pick. But that's what you're looking at when you're talking about day 3 guys. Draft Network described him as this: big on big block destruction. I like hearing that word, destruction. And even at a 5th-round selection, he's still expected to be an immediate rotational contributor. That's what we're looking at here. Even though he's a project of some sorts, expect him to get playing time right away, to kind of learn on the fly of sorts to figure it out. Did play in the Senior Bowl this past year. The numbers for him in 2022 included 42 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, and 3 pass breakups. Still 2 more picks to go. That's where we go to Illinois, and we find a running back. Look, we don't know if the Seahawks are going to bring back Rashad Penny. Probably not. You can't really trust any of the other backs to be your number 2 guy. You're not going to pick Bijan all the way in the first round. Running back's a need, but it's not priority by any stretch, but you do need to take care of it. This is where we take a flyer on Chase Brown out of Illinois. Second team All-Big Ten selection this past year. Won the John Cornish Trophy. And you talk about consistency. This is somebody that has had back-to-back years with over 1,000 rushing yards. So he's been a nice piece. And Brett Bielema, we know he loves to run the football. Traditionally speaking, we saw it at Arkansas. We saw it with Wisconsin. And he was a consistent force for the Fighting Illini this past year. He had over 1,600 yards and 10 touchdowns and was kind of forgotten about. Nobody was hardly talking about Chase Brown and what he was able to do. He's sitting there late day 3. Sure, why not add Chase Brown and make him another piece to sit behind Kenneth Walker? You have to have multiple backs in this league. You have to give a break to your starting running back. Chase Brown could be a good fit there. Our final pick. I am of the belief, the Bill Belichick philosophy, that every draft you should take a quarterback. Whether it's in the 6th or 7th round or whether it's in the 1st and 2nd round, whatever it may be. You can't end the draft without taking a quarterback, at least to take on a project. Maybe it's to add value later. Clayton Tune is very interesting. Now, as somebody that went to the University of Kansas, I am very upset that he originally committed to Kansas and then decommitted and went to Houston. But nonetheless, he had a very good run with the Houston Cougars there, as he was first-team All-American Athletic Conference this past year. And everybody knows about the first 4 quarterbacks in this draft, right? Will Levis, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson. According to Kuiper, the guy after them, after all 4 of those guys that are supposed to be in the first round, is Clayton Tune. And we got him in the 6th. This is a project I'm willing to see if it works. And Clayton Tune's a guy I think you would feel comfortable with being your backup. You wouldn't even need Drew Lock at that point. Last season, 40 touchdown passes. That was the 3rd most of any quarterback in all of college football this past year. That's pretty dang good if you ask me. 10 interceptions, over 4,000 yards, and he's pretty accurate too. Over 67% completion percentage for Clayton Tune there. I like that selection possibly late there in the 6th round. So here's what we have done with this draft. At number 5, we took Jalen Carter, and we threw a party. We popped champagne bottles. We were feeling really good about that. Then we got Henry To'o, the linebacker from Alabama. Andre Carter, who I know there's questions about the military service, but sounds like he's got that figured out. We got that taken care of. Zay Flowers, a first-round talent. We got him at 53. We took care of the safety spot with Brandon Joseph at 83. And then the back half of the draft felt pretty solid as well. And not to mention, we also got a first-round pick next year from a team that's probably going to be pretty bad. And we might use that next year to find the quarterback we really want potentially. So, how did I do before we go? Grade my Seahawks mock draft. A, B, C, D, or F. What do you think about the selections I made for your Seattle Seahawks? Not only did we get 9 picks, we also picked up a pick next year as well. Let me know in the comment section. I'll see you next time here on Seahawks Today.